golden means to Samadhi. But, O Arjuna, yoga is not possible for one who eats too much, nor for one who does not eat at all, neither for one who habitually sleeps too long, nor surely for one who keeps awake habitually. Natyashnadastu yogosti nachaikantamanashnataha nachate swapnashilasya jagrato naivacharjuna. So this is the golden mean, spoken of by Aristotle. Should it not, when speaking about ethics, we not do anything extremes. You've got to take like Buddha said, the middle path. So all through people who have realized the truth have spoken about this means. Don't do too much, nor too less. So here we have the first thing they're saying, yoga is not possible for one who eats too much, obviously, nor for one who does not eat at all, neither for one who habitually sleeps too much, nor surely for one who habitually keeps awake. So what happens is the body has to be well rested. The brain has to be well rested. Your efforts have to be kind of on the middle ground. For the simple reason is moderation is the golden means. Be moderate in everything. At one time you might say, I will keep awake and I will keep on doing meditation the whole day and night. And the next day, you will oversleep because your body and mind has become kind of fatigued. No, it has to be done gradually. Push and push and push and push. And slowly you will find all obstructions melting away. Because this is the only way to condition ourselves. If we not see it not only in the practice of yoga, but in every aspect of life, in athletics, in business, in everything, you will find the golden means is the golden means. So here we have now food, what is appropriate for oneself. You see, the Lord has not spoken about what type of food. He's saying just food that is appropriate for oneself. Now you got to find out what exactly is appropriate for you. As you keep on growing in yoga, your idea of sensitivity keeps on also growing. So you will judge what is good for me, what is good for the environment. So, see what happens is gluttony is not accepted by any kind of discipline, be it secular or spiritual. Because the glutton thinks only of what I would like to eat and what I like, and I will keep on eating. But the food that we eat is actually derived from the environment. And in the process, we are leaving such huge carbon footprints all over. They're saying, life is a journey. Yeah, you've left behind a long trail of carbon footprints. Yeah. So we need to be careful about how we eat and how it affects not only your health, but also the environment. So they say that if you eat moderately, what happens is a lot of your energies becomes harmonized. If you overeat, obviously, see how you keep on belching and how you feel lazy and how you feel as if there's a brain fog and you don't want to think of higher things. Too much of food gives you brain fog. Too much of food also gives you diseases. Like too less food also gives you diseases. So you've got to find your middle way. And the stomach itself, it's not, it's such a small thing. Somebody says your stomach is in the center of your belly. It's not actually here, it's somewhere here, up here. The tail end comes here. And it's kind of, such a small thing, and you wonder, my God. And it's filled with all the acids and the hydrochloric acid. It's like battery acid. It's just there to kind of kill all diseases and you can say microbiomes and the germs that are coming. So if you keep on eating, there's a reflex, you can say, and the vagus nerve. I think the vagus nerve sends a, you can say, response to the brain, and the brain says, okay, now bloat it up a little. The guy wants to eat a little more, and keep on. And then it's inflated some more. And the stomach is poorly churning and churning and churning. My God. So the ills of indigestion, we all know what it is. So they say, that is appropriate food where you balance the amount of food. Secondly, ahara, that which is taken in. Most of the, you can say, spiritual aspirants take that food which is here solid. There, food, we know food as this. Shankaracharya also takes it in the sense of that which is taken in through the senses. That also is food, ahara. So Swami Vivekananda says, do both. Food that is pure, which has no impurities, which is fresh. And, these old, there were the three doshas, the three defects in food. The nature of the food, jati dosha, nimitta dosha, dust, etc., flies falling in, whatever. And the one who cooks and one who touches and all these things, their mental attitudes also get into that kind of. So once the food is free from all these things, you eat. And the best way to remove all defects in food is to offer that food to the Lord. Even if there is no temple, you mentally offer the food to the Lord, you pray, and then you eat it as a sacrificial, you can say, remnant, the prasad, as we say. So this is so much food. So we need to have a little. In the books of yoga and in the Upanishads also, in the Vedas, Shatapatha Brahmana, we find they're telling you exactly how much you are supposed to eat. Eat half. Fill half your stomach with food. Oh my God. If you tell this to some modern guy, no, eat full, belly full. So what happens is the food should not drag you down. It should not make you feel lazy. It should not make you feel, you can say, sleepy. That food should be a kind of source of energy. So once you have this and at the same time not eating at all, that also is bad. So those who want to practice yoga, why is this important? Because they say, you are what you eat. There's a saying, you are what you eat. Well, no, there's a higher thing. You are what you digest. So if you can digest that food, what you've eaten, that makes you, it makes your body. And the body is constantly being made. renewed. So food is an essential, you can say, component in the practice of yoga. That's the reason why emphasis has been given on food. At the same time, we should not be fanatical about food. This is the means, this is not the end. Your life is not supposed to be doing this only. Oh, I should not eat this, I should not eat that, I should not drink that, I should not drink this, I should not touch this, I should not touch that. That is not the goal. People, they are food fanatics. Either on the extreme, or you can say, they give up all these kind of, no. So, there also the golden means works. So, natyashnastastu yogosti na chaikanta manasnataha. And one should not do too much of fasting also. At the same time, like Sri Ramakrishna says, okay, so in the night your food should be light. Okay. In the daytime you can eat well. That's important. So the Vedas also say when you eat food in moderation, it sustains you. And when you do not eat food in moderation, it does not sustain you, it harms you. So then it is said, the one who does not sleep too much or one who sleeps too much. Oh. So here we say, neither for one who habitually sleeps too long. Habitually. There are times when you are tired and your body needs a rest. Maybe a couple of days you sleep a little, oversleep a little. You don't have to berate yourself. That's okay. You were tired working and now you overslept. And so what we have is, we are talking about habitually oversleeping or not sleeping at all. So this is important. We must be able to break this. So if you eat too much, you need to sleep too much. So the moment you... And whether the quantity of food is sufficient or no, actually we are most of the time overeating in many ways. So we need to keep, the body becomes really fit. And today's doctors and everybody is talking about intermittent fasting. Wow, okay. That also is part of the whole thing. So intermittent fasting, don't eat too much, don't fast too much, don't sleep too much, and don't, can say, stay awake too much. Because, like I said, the brain and the body and the nervous system has to be kind of toned. It has to be fresh when you sit down to practice meditation. And then there are other rules also. This is the general rule, but it's applied to other things also. When you're saying, when it is too cold, when it is freezing, you're trying to meditate when it's freezing, cover yourself up nicely. When it is too hot, you're perspiring, you're sweating, that also shouldn't be done. And then when it's too windy. So these are few of the rules given when you have to take something in moderation. Then the next verse is Yukta hara viharasya yukta cheshtasya karmasu yukta swapna vabodhasya yogo bhavati dukkha. So yoga becomes the destroyer of sorrow. Yogo bhavati dukkha. Yoga becomes the destroyer of sorrow. When? To one whose food and movements are regulated, whose efforts, chesta, in works is moderate, and whose sleep and wakefulness are moderate. Yoga then becomes the destroyer of sorrow. This is the golden means, moderation. So you talk to one whose food and movements, movements. Yukta ahara vihara. Movements like, you can leisure and all these things. We are talking about, things like in the old days, they gave rules also. You should not walk more than 9 miles a day. People keep on walking and walking and walking and walking. Okay, that's okay. It's good to walk. But they will keep on walking, and then you don't expect them to sit down and meditate fully. You'll be sitting down, but so your activity should be regulated, like the food, and also your efforts. There are some who will they're workaholics. They will keep on working and working and working and working. See, what happens is karma yoga is good. And it is the means also to higher. But when karma is being done as karma yoga, and when karma has to stop, then what remains? Yoga. This is the idea. So you put in all, you can say, efforts in moderating yourself. That's a yukta. That is balanced. That is one who is moderate, one who is kind of controlled. Yukta ahara and viharasya, yukta cheshtasya karma. And one should, in efforts, in work, also should be moderate. Now, one must be intelligent enough to kind of take things, not literally at times. There are times when you need to be working persistently for some time, because it needs attention and this and that to complete a task. You cannot say, now I'm going, you give up your work in the middle and then say, now I'm going to practice yoga, because the book says that balance. So one must apply these things also intelligently. Moderation has been stressed for this. So like I said, why? Sleep and wakefulness. So what happens is when the mind is too active or too kind of lazy, too dull, you cannot practice yoga. When you try to practice yoga, you will fall asleep. Because there's something called the homeostasis in the body. The body knows what exactly is required. If you fast for 2 days, you're going to eat a little extra on the 3rd day. If you're going to stay awake for 2 nights, the 3rd night you're going to sleep it out. So there is already a balance in the body. Listen to the body. That's the idea. So this is the status. This is the status, as they say. How to listen to the body, do what is perfectly aligned with it. And once you can have that perfect alignment, then you can practice yoga. See, when the nerves are too taut, too stretched, too tense, you cannot practice yoga. Yoga needs very strong nerves, and that includes nervous system, and you can say in the brain also. So it has to say. So that's why some of the books on yoga are saying, samapya nidram. That is, finish your sleep. And after you finish your sleep, then you take up the practice of yoga. So if you do not, there was one great Swami who, in the Belur monastery, Belur Math, there was a rule, you've got to get up at 4 o'clock. And so one Swami, he went to Raja Maharaj, Swami Brahmananda. He said, can I sleep for half an hour more? Because I find that half an hour extra sleep there really makes me feeling fresh. So Raja Maharaj understood. He's saying yes. So we should understand our own inner, you can say, requirements, our own inner capacities, and correspondingly follow that golden means. Madhya Panta. Sarvam Madhyantam Garhitam. So anything excess, anything intensification of anything is to be discarded. It is bad. So then the old books on yoga say, in the old days, they had no electricity. Today we have electricity, and and half the night is actually part of the day. Yeah. So in the old days, it was, the lamps were there, and they were saying, after your dinner, they used to put the lights off, and they used to go to sleep. Okay. So in those days, it was like the first part of the night, the second part of the night, a third part. Divide that whole night into 3 parts. It's very early. Or in the old days, it was around 7:30, 8 o'clock. Everybody used to go to sleep and wake up very early in the morning, Brahma Murta, early in the morning. So, if you divide the whole night into 3 parts, the first part and the last part, morning, should be kept for yoga, and the middle part for sleep. Okay, this is understood. And then we have this work, etc., and all these things are to be done throughout the day. Now, after the Lord has spoken about moderation in food and recreation and sleep, etc., now he comes to the crux, the main point. Why exactly are these things? Like I said, these are the means. The 18th verse has implications for all of us, and not only that, so those means are carrying you here to this point. A person who has become free from hankering for all desirable objects is then said to be self-absorbed when the fully controlled mind rests on the Atman alone. Yada viniyatam chittam atmanneva vatishtate nispriya sarvakamebhyo yukta ityuchyate tada. Yada, when, tada, then, at that time. So here is saying, when a person has become free from hankering for all desirable objects, what can desire? Is then said to be self-absorbed. Atmaneva vatishtati. And you see, what happens is, as we are practicing yoga, practicing the means to this yoga, this particular verse is something called, it's leading us to yoga, but it's called Samprajnata Yoga. Samprajnata Samadhi. Yoga is Samadhi. What is Samadhi? Intense concentration. So all these means and all these things, like from the very first, you can say, verse, we're talking about all these means, they're leading us to this. What is Samprajnata Samadhi? That is samyak, sam means completely, prajnayate, to know, to see clearly in its perfection, complete perfection, to know something completely and perfectly. So what does yoga do? Gives you knowledge. What does concentration do? Gives you. Now there are 5 states of the mind, chitta bhumi. Because since we are going to talk a little about samadhi, the means, the subtitle of the talk is Golden Means to Samadhi. Because this word samadhi has been so misrepresented, distorted, and I don't know what else it has been made. But then people toss it about like as if it's like something you could get in the you can say in the store, You go to a store and I want samadhi. Can you give me samadhi? Yeah, sure. Yeah, this is samadhi. So just to put things on the record, I will explain a little about samadhi today, And in the next class, we will see the rest of this. So the grounding for this concentration is, the samadhis is, so the chitta, 5 types of minds, or 5 classes of minds. There is first the kshipta, muda, vikshipta, ekagra, niruddha. Now, don't get frightened about these technical terms. In one of our meditation videos, we had spoken about these 5 states of the mind that are natural to people. Concentration is possible in all the states, intense. But these, the kshipta is that is like you take something and throw out. The mind is constantly being dispersed. Constant restlessness. You cannot eat properly, you cannot sleep properly, you're tense, you're stressed constantly. There is no peace in this kind of mind. This mind is only darkened with anger and hatred and jealousy and power and position and this and that. A scheming mind. So this is that mind which actually, this type of mind is not, you can say, eligible for yoga. The second is the darkened state of the mind, muda, dull. It serves only to injure things, injure people, injure things. It is scheming. It is murderous. It is lazy. It is sloth. It is all those kind of darkened state. Yoga, it might get, you have a murderous tendency and your mind might get concentrated. But that concentration will break immediately because the nature of the mind itself will disperse that concentration. So first is the kshipta, vikshipta, kshipta, muda, darkened state, the restless state and darkened state. The third is vikshipta. This is generally what people have. Spiritual aspirants have, vikshipta. Alternately restless, alternately calm. So how do we know, how can we gauge that, yes, this person has, or I have, or you have a mind which is alternately restless and calm? Yeah, you can know it. But for yoga, there is another test. And the test is, it's like, we had rains, yesterday. Yeah. And it was wonderful. In California, rains, is kind of a rare event. Shiva, Atma Tattvananda says, oh, it's liquid sunshine. So when it rains, okay. Now, after some time, you'll see the grass sprouting up, trees. Where did this come from? The grass, the old grass was dead and kind of finished, brown and burnt. But suddenly after a rain, you find grass emerging. So from that you can infer that there were those seeds. So they sprouted up. So people who take up yoga can find out about it. When they hear about spiritual topics or read about spiritual topics or about yoga, etc., there is a kind of faith that's generated in them. Shraddha. And then that Shraddha gives them energy, virya. Oh, yeah, that faith, yeah. And that gives us that. And from that energy, it gives prajna, insight. Oh, yeah, I can do this. Yeah, why not? Yeah, I can, of course. So these are the indications that the seeds of yoga are there in your mind. Seeds of spirituality. a little awakening rouses them. Sri Ramakrishna also says about somebody is kind of walking and stubs his toe on an old kind of pipe out there and breaks and water gushes out. We never knew that there was a pipe and there was water in the pipe, but suddenly. So when you hear something nice, spiritual of course, then you feel that kind of confidence building up. So this is the you can say, the indications that this mind is vikshipta, alternately restless, alternately calm, but has seeds of spirituality, which need now to be nurtured. That's all. And how do you nurture it? By this golden mean, moderation in this, that. And after this, then we have something called ekagra, the mind that is by nature one-pointed. Yes, here you have yoga proper. This whole science of yoga is now meant for this person or this type of mind. One whose mind can become absorbed, become one-pointed, eka-agra, that pointed, one-pointed. When you do something, you say something, you're working on something, you become absorbed in it. There are various examples and, kind of, even in the Gospel of Sri Ramakrishna and all that. So, we don't need to elaborate it. We all know what's there. And then, the fifth and the highest state of the mind is niruddha, completely controlled. After that concentrated mind, a one-pointed mind, the mind becomes, as it were, stilled, completely controlled. So this verse speaks about the one-pointed state of mind. This is the first step towards practicing of samadhi. Okay. Now, in the first chapter of the Yoga Sutras, the aphorism of yoga, it's called Samadhipada, the chapter on samadhi, concentration. And the first chapter is meant for the elite, those who have already ascended to that level of one-pointedness. They are one-pointedness, one-pointed. So these other chapters are meant for those who are middling, people like us, vikshipta, that is alternately calm, alternately restless. The eightfold, you can say, yoga, yama, niyama, asana, pranayama, pratyahara, dharana, dhyana, samadhi. Oh, long list. So here what this person does is, he has been advised just two, you can say, means, upaya. That is, abhyasa and vairagya. Practice and detachment. Simple as that. Now, what do you mean by practice? Sustained practice, but like I said, moderately done. When things are done moderately, you can sustain them for a long time. That's why it's called sa tu dirgha kala nairantarya satkara sevita dridabhumi. That the mind becomes firmly grounded when through long, constant efforts with great love for the end, for the goal. That's how Swami Vivekananda translates it. So it needs a kind of a sustained, you can say. You plod on and on and on and on and on and on. Don't zoom for a couple of days and then fizzle out. We don't want anything fizzling out. We want something which is sustained. Slowly you push it up. So this is practice. And we know practice is the key to everything in this world. You have to give time for that. You can't understand this book, give it some time. Practice, read, reread, and then you'll understand it. Practice football, practice baseball. Oh, it's very easy to practice baseball. Yeah, it's easy to play. No, those guys who play baseball or football, they have been practicing for many, 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 many years. Ask them and they'll tell you what exactly is practice. So this is, everything in this world can be attained through practice. Anything in this world. So it's a very powerful means, but it has to be employed in moderation. And detachment. Detachment, vairagya. So this sutra is abhyasa vairagya bhyam tan nirodha. That the mind is controlled through practice and detachment. So before we get into this detachment, there are two types of detachment. One is the lower detachment, one is the higher detachment. Vairagya and para-vairagya. Okay? The lower detachment has 4 stages. Yeah, he's saying, my God, so many things. I think we would have needed a blackboard and kind of whiteboard. So the first stage is, this is all actually, it's not something which is superfluous. Oh, we don't need to that. No, it is necessary. Because after thousands and thousands and thousands of years of yogis practicing these means, they have found it a perfect, you can say, tool in order to control the mind. It has results and it has been tested. So the detachment consists of 4. First is you practice. It's actually, no, this is not good for me. I keep away from certain things. That is okay, middling, I go towards it. So yatamana, that is, you put in effort. It's a conscious effort. Vyatireka, that is separation. That is, it's like a physician, the commentator says, okay, I've cured these symptoms, now this is to be taken care of. I know what exactly now I have to zero in. So you have to be able to separate, I need to control this particular aspect of my mind because it's making me restless. So this is Vyatireka. And then after practicing this, the external object now does not upset you. It's called ekendriya. It is only in the mind. The desire is only in the mind. And then the 4th is Vashikara. It's completely controlled. Vashikara is exactly opposite of desire. So you have now countered all aspects of restlessness of the mind. Because it is unfulfilled desires or kind of imaginations that pushes the mind out here. Be satisfied with what you do. Keep on slowly doing and give up certain things, take up certain good things and move ahead. So once this is there, you are now ready for this. Yada viniyatam chittam atmaneva vatishtate nispriha sarva kamebhya. There is no kind of spriya, there is no hankering for any kind of desire. Nispriya. Yukta, that person is called a yogi, a yukta, one who is controlled. Yada, at that time, viniyatam chittam, when niyatam is to control, we completely, when the mind is completely controlled. And atmani eva avatishthati, one stays in the Atman alone. Oh, what's this Atman alone? Yeah, Atman alone abides. There's a book on that. Atman alone abides. So in order to make this comprehensible, all this explanation was necessary. Nispriha, without an spriha, that is that thirst, hankering for the objects. That person does not have any hankering now for any objects, sarvakam, or any objects of desire. That person is stationed in one's own self. After controlling everything, controlling the mind, yada viniyatam chittam, controlling the mind, stationed in the self, and there is no desire. This is now the stage set for practicing samadhi. If people say, oh, samadhi, 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 I got samadhi. Yes, please, go ahead. And you go and preach your samadhi. Now, samadhi has got the objects of samadhi are three. That is, the external objects, the objects of experience, meditation on the objects of experience, the instrument of experience, and the experiencer. So samadhi has been categorized into three. First, the objects of experience. Where is the objects of experience? Well, you experience things in the mind, by the mind. The instrument is also the mind. And who's that? That experiencer also is in the mind. Now, you must be able to separate all the three things together. And then start with the gross, the objects of experience, then the instrument of experience, and the experiencer. This is the highest form of lower samadhis. Yeah, highest form of lower samadhi. This is the lower samadhis. Some prajna. Why? Okay, we'll see. When through practice and detachment, after practicing, after moderation, everything, what happens is, kshine vritte, the waves in the mind have become weakened. Abhijatasya grahitri grahana graheshu tas tatadanjanata samapatti. There is a kind of a perfect reflection when that object arises in the mind, the object of experience in the mind. It's like you are like a mirror, perfectly reflecting that object. The mind becomes like a mirror, clean mirror. Now what the mind is muddied, clouded. All the dust and the dirt and all the things are. So when the mind stuff has become calm, as it becomes calm, it reflects things outside exactly as they are. There is kind of a luminosity in the instrument. The mind becomes luminous. The object shines in that mind, and the experiencer knows, yes, this is. So this is called samapatti, technically absorption. It is the same as samadhi. So there's a kind of clarity coming now to your practice. In the state of one-pointedness, there's clarity. Perfect. And now you can distinguish. See, when you put or place a flower in front of the mirror, you know what the flower is. It is an external object. You know what's a reflection of the flower in the mirror, and you know what's a mirror. These three things are completely separate. But what happens in the mind, these three things have become all mixed up. Everything has become mixed up. And thousands of things, objects of experiences are coming inside, and the mind doesn't know what to do, is clouded, and so many things. Like in the external world, you know the distinction between the flower, the reflection of the flower in the mirror, and the mirror. Similarly, in this stage of practice, you will know exactly the object of experience, the instrument of experience, the mind, and the experiencer. So you start practicing first controlling the objects of experience. Because you experience in the mind, you don't go and say, I want to control you, this chair, I want to control this chair. No, you don't have to control the chair. You better control the chair which is in the mind. So that's what yogas say. So you have now come inside. Now, so how much practice is required? So you go from the gross to the subtle to the subtlest, the sense of I. So samadhi is divided into three. Just to give a kind of a introduction to the lengthy description of samadhi, which we will be taking up in the next class. The objects of the senses, or the objects of experiences, are two types. One is a gross and one is a subtle. In the mind, we are just talking about in the mind. The objects are gross and subtle. Okay? Now, accordingly, we have something called savitarka, nirvitarka, savichara, nirvichara, sananda, sasmita. So these are the 6 primary stages of samadhis. We start from the grossest outside and we move in slowly. We stop here for today. We'll take this topic of samadhi in the next class, which, of course, will not be next Thursday, because on next Thursday we have some Shivaratri, the night of Shiva, that is going to be celebrated from 6 p.m. to 11 or 11:30 p.m. So tune in. So we will have a class after the Shivaratri. So after a fortnight. So we'll take up the topic of samadhi again in its, not in its very technical details. I just want to give you a brief outline of what are the stages. Because we have some wrong conceptions about samadhi, I would like to clarify it and put it on record that this is what it is. Because this verse speaks about this sampragnata samadhi, according to the commentators. The next verse speaks about the samadhi in the controlled state, niruddha state of mind. And the illustration is given like the lamp placed in a windless place. And the lamp is unflickering. Yada deepo nivatasti, that. So that is a niruddha state, that controlled state. So when you go from here, you go to the higher next stage. So these two verses will kind of give us an idea about what samadhi is. Okay.
There is a question. It's not really on the topic. Should I ask?
No.
Okay. So there is no question.
Okay. Yeah.
You first talked about ekagra, then you talked about nispruha.
Niruddha.
No. You use the word like it calms down, nispruha or something.
Nispriha.
Nispriha. Right. You talked ekagra also requiring first everything settled down to get. So I'm little the connection.
When you have no desires, when there is no hankering, in the state of ekagra, you have seeds, the bijas, the seeds of all those old desires are still there. So that person for the time being has kind of kept them under control. See, like when I am looking at this book, all other things have kind of become peripheral to it. So the moment I take my attention away from this book, I look, oh yeah, it's like this. That one-pointedness is like this. It makes you forget everything. Sri Ramakrishna gives the example of, you become so still and you might not realize that birds will sit on your head and A snake might crawl over your, in the old days of yogis, and Sri Ramakrishna used to kind of had this kind of. So that is what is kind of ekagrata.
And after that, you then, what did you explain next? After that, you said something like nispriha, something that.
Nispriha sarva kamebhyo.
Right, but is that, you talked about it after ekagra. I was wondering whether.
No, it's not. You got to take care of it before you can even start practicing. Yeah.
One question came. After having a reflection of the self, can someone have a direct experience of the self, firsthand, without reflection? But the self which is reflected itself?
No, you've got, it's more like a jingling of words, you know. You're talking about reflection of the self, and can one attain the self from the reflection of the self? What's the question?
Can you have a first-hand experience of the self without any reflection?
Can you have the first-hand experience of the self without reflection? Yes, but that is only in the highest stage, which we will discuss it in our subsequent classes. First, you will have to experience the state, the self, in, as it were, it's reflected in something, in the state of the mind. So that is called the sense of aham or asmita. So hold on to your, you can say, seat belts. We are taking off, and when we get down to that, you can get those clarifications. These are technical things, and you will have to give up even the sense of self, the self what you feel right now. It has to be given up, and it's like a stone rolling down the top of a mountain into the valley. The self falls away completely and it disappears. So the self can be realized by its own self. It's called swasamvedya one. The self knows itself. You see, what happens is consciousness has a quality of knowledge. And knowledge of what? Of the self. So when we come down to that level of understanding, so that's why the scriptures on samadhi speak about going about it gradually. Because if you stop midway, there are people who stop. You know, people say, oh, these, we'll discuss it later on in extension. People say, oh, some of these monks, you know, especially Ramakrishna, they don't have any powers only. They're practicing yoga. Well, you get powers when you concentrate on aspects of nature, prakriti. When you concentrate on the self, the Atman, you will not get any powers. Powers are worldly powers. Though they may be super fine and you can say marvelous. So, those who have that concentration on aspects of nature, we will discuss it. There are 16, you can say, categories of nature that are objects of meditation. The 5 great elements, space, air, fire, earth and water, etc. And the 5 organs of perception, 5 organs of action, and the mind. So these are the 16, you can say, categories which becomes objects. So we'll take this up slowly. Okay. Om Shanti 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 Harihi Om Tat Sat Shri Ram Krishna Arpanamastu.